What's up, Scouters? So I was actually pretty surprised to find out that not a lot of international K-pop sites were covering this, but one of the hottest topics in Korea right now is that Mr. Steve Yu's trial process against the Korean government is now officially over. And Mr. Steve Yu, or aka Yoo Seung-jun, is a very well-known person in the K-pop scene, even to international K-pop fans, despite the fact that his career basically ended back in 2001. And I've already made a video about this man, so if you want to find out more, check out my previous video. I'll have the card up here somewhere. But giving you guys a quick summary, he was the hottest, and I mean the hottest celebrity in this country, to the point that all the kids, including myself, walked around with this weird ass hair, because despite how hideous and ridiculous this looks right now, this was Steve's signature hair. Aside from his songs and dance moves, one of the things that also contributed to his popularity was the fact that on numerous occasions he stated that he will follow through with his military service despite being a US green card holder who was eligible to apply for his citizenship. But he didn't, and lied to the Korean government for a quick trip to the US where he got his citizenship and gave up his Korean one. After that, the Korean government has denied him entrance to the country, claiming that expats like Steve entering the country and continuing their successful careers after tricking the government and not doing his military service was harmful to the well-being of the nation. In 2015, after Mr. Steve Yu reached 38 years old, an age where he can no longer enlist because his duty of military service disappears, he requested for a visa at the Korean Consulate General in Los Angeles. But the request was denied, and consequently Mr. Steve Yu filed a lawsuit. And this is the lawsuit that is now over. On March 13th, the Korean Supreme Court took Mr. Steve Yu's hand, claiming that the Consulate General's decision to deny Mr. Steve Yu his visa was unconstitutional. This means Mr. Steve Yu can make another request for a visa, and the Consulate General will have to reevaluate the situation and make another decision. Oh, and to point something out before I get into more detail, although American citizens don't need a visa to enter Korea for less than 90 days, the same benefit does not apply to Steve because the Ministry of Justice has labeled him as someone who can't enter the country. And the visa that Steve is requesting for is something a little bit special, and I'll get into that in a bit. So now that the trial is over, does this mean Steve can enter Korea at his will? Personally, I don't think that's going to be the case. Even after this, I think it is highly unlikely that Steve is going to be able to enter Korea. Well, at least not as of now, because the lawsuit he filed was against getting a visa, not for entering the country. And to go into some specific details, the Korean Supreme Court found that the Consulate General's reasoning to deny Steve's visa was unconstitutional. Reasoning and reasoning only. This means after Steve makes another request at the Consulate General for a visa, the Consulate General or the Ministry of Justice can just come up with new reasons to deny him a visa. And even if Steve does get his visa, he can easily be denied entrance at the airport by the Immigration Bureau. I mean, and so on and so on. I mean, there are so many obstacles in his way of entering the country. And even if he does enter, I don't think his life in Korea is going to go all that well, seeing as how a lot of people still don't like him a lot. I mean, the number of people that don't like him have definitely decreased when compared to the past, but I still see a significant number of people around me and on the internet who wouldn't like it if he enters the country. And to support their claims, these people who don't really like Mr. Steve Yu point out the fact that Mr. Steve Yu applied for an F4 visa back in 2015, which is a visa granting foreigners the right to participate in economic activities. And that's after in 2014 when the US changed their tax laws and made it mandatory for their citizens to report their assets abroad and pay a tax on it just like their assets back in the United States. And that's why a lot of people are now buying Mr. Steve Yu's claim that he just wants to be a proud father who can take his children back to his motherland, because the visa he specifically wants grants him much more power than just touring his children around the country. And at this point, if you're asking me how I personally feel about this man, I don't really know. I don't think I really have an opinion at this point about this man, other than the fact that I feel bad that he made a very wrong choice. And I know some of you living in other countries without mandatory military services might be like, yeah, well, mandatory military services are stupid anyway. But hey, when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? I'm sure at the time he made his decision to evade his military service, Steve was probably fully aware of how serious military service is taken in Korea. So what do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you next time, guys.